purpose of this meeting today is to discuss Abbott's most recent evaluation scores. Every 3 years, students are given these tests again to see if there have been any changes. So they're reevaluated every 3 years. And so today we're going to go over those reports with you. The first test that Abbott was given was an IQ test known as the Reynolds Intellectual Assessment Scale. Like I said, this is an IQ test. It can be given to individuals between the ages of 3 to 94 years. And Abbott's scores report that his verbal index was at a 99, and scores between 90 and 109 are considered to be average. So his was a 99, so that is average. His nonverbal was a 105, which is also average. And then his composite index, so that's a composite score, that's an average of the 2 scores, was a 102. And that's the score that we look at to say that's his IQ. So in this case, his IQ is about a 102. Now that can vary 10 degrees up or down and not signify any change. So it's pretty close to a 102. Now the next test that he was given was a language screener, and he passed that. So he doesn't qualify for any speech services. Now the next test that we did was an adaptive behavior checklist, and this is usually done at home and at school. The areas of concern for Abbott were withdrawn, depressed, and thought problems. That some of his higher scores at the time were somatic complaints. Another test that Abbott was given was the Attention Deficit Disorders Evaluation Scale. And this enables educators to evaluate and diagnose ADHD in children ages 4 to 19. So that puts Abbott in that range. And then this is given at home and at school as well. And at home, some of your areas of concern were inattentive, hyperactive, and impulsive. And at school, we also saw the same 2 clinically significant areas of concern, which was the inattentive and the hyperactive impulsive. But that goes with his diagnosis of having ADHD. The Adaptive Behavior Evaluation Scale Revised 2nd Edition. This provides a measure of adaptive behaviors which are necessary for success in both the education and the home setting. They're not measured by academic skills testing. And this is also a home and school version testing. So this is the teachers, what the teacher observes at school compared, not really compared, but it's like an average of what you see at home as well. So at home, you said you have concerns with Abbott's communication, functional academics, social leisure, self-direction, self-care, home living, community use, health and safety, and work. So all of the areas of this testing Abbott shows concern with at home. However, at school, he only shows concern for social leisure, self-direction, community use, and work. We do see variances a lot in these tests between the parents and the teachers. Sometimes it's because one's harder than the other. Sometimes it's because the kid acts different in one setting than the other. So that's okay that those scores aren't the same, but we just kind of try to take the average of the 2, and we look at the certain setting when we're thinking of recommendations. So a couple of the ones that you both had concerns in were self-direction, social leisure, and community use in work. So that's his work ethic. You may be seeing like how he's doing his homework, or if you've assigned him like a chore or something, how he's reacting to that. Whereas the teacher may see how he is reacting to the tasks that she gives him at school, the things she wants him to complete. And then social is how he's interacting with others, and then leisure is what kind of things he's choosing to do in his downtime or in his own time. And then self-direction is, can he choose what he's supposed to do on his own without having been told? Another test that he was given was the TOVA. It's a test of variables of attention. It's a computerized test of attention used to aid in the diagnosis of attention disorders. And this can be given from anyone ages 4 to 80 plus. So Cameron had a response time variability of 90, a response time of 82, commissions of 111, but altogether, his attention performance index, so all of these together make up a score of negative 1.40. And given these results, they are similar to others diagnosed with attention disorders. The assessment shows concern in the areas of inattention and slow reaction time, but like we discussed, that goes hand in hand with him having the diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right, that he has now. And so we all had concerns. You expressed your concerns. The teacher expressed her concerns that there might be an underlying issue of autism. And so we gave Cameron quite a few tests that measure behaviors that other autistic kids may show. One of these was called the Gilliam-Asperger's Disorder Scale. And this is behavior rating for individuals 3 to 22 years. And it assists in the diagnosis of Asperger's disorder. So these are all 4 of these: the social interaction, the restricted patterns of behavior, the cognitive patterns, pragmatic skills. These are all subtests to the Asperger's disorder quotient. So all of those scores make up this disorder quotient, which is 112. And this number results, this assessment results indicate a high probability of Asperger's. So we'll keep reviewing these. So the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, it is called the ADOS. It is another test that measures communication, social interaction, and imaginative skills for individuals who've been referred because of possible autism. It does not include information about onset or early history. Ours doesn't, so we'll need some additional historical information from you. But the ADOS classification provides an obtained comparison score for other students who have been diagnosed with autism. And so it shows that average score, and Cameron scored a total of 17. And the comparison score is 9. So Cameron displayed high behavior characteristics related to autism. So the total score is a combination of the social effect, which is communication and reciprocal social interaction. In my observation of Cameron, he seemed a little more outgoing when others were talking to him, but he never would seek anyone out. If he was working on his work in his spot, he may have gotten distracted, but he was distracted, like maybe just staring off into space or playing with his fidget toy. So while I did see some of those social interactions, he wasn't seeking them out. So the average score is 9, and he scored a total of 17. So his score falls within the autism range and indicates that he displays a high level of characteristics similar to youth diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. During the administration of the ADOS, he didn't show any indicators of hand, finger, or other complex mannerisms, stereotyped words or phrases. He did use and, then when trying to tell a story a lot, but it wasn't a repeated placeholder or a repeated word that he would just say all the time. He didn't display self-injurious behavior, aggression, tantrums, compulsions, rituals, or unusual sensory interest in materials, although there were brief visual perception inspection of several items, but they were not considered to be of marked degree. He displayed problems or limited skills for speech-language conversation, use of descriptive gestures, eye contact, quality of rapport, social response, and insight into social relationships and emotions. That eye contact, that is something that I did notice in my observation when he was talking with other students or to the teacher. While he could carry, especially the teacher, but while he could carry on the conversation with her, he wouldn't hold eye contact for long. Some additional challenges observed during the administration of this included mild signs of anxiety, overactivity, fidgeting, which goes along with everything we've looked at so far about his ADHD, and limited imagination and creativity. His interest for dinosaurs and other toy animals came up several times during the ADOS, and I've heard that from his teacher as well, that he knows lots about dinosaurs. Another test that was given is called the Autism Spectrum Rating Scales. And this provides general information about how he compares to an average group of students. So this test can be given from ages 2 to 18, and it helps to identify symptoms, behaviors, and associated features of autism spectrum disorder. So if we look at this one, this was rated by you. And one of the first things that you rated was social communication. And the T-score is like on an average score. And so you rated him at an 81, which is the 99th percentile. So it means he scored at or better than 99% of the people that were rated on this. And so that puts him at very elevated. He has difficulty with verbal and nonverbal communication. You rated him at a 68 for unusual behaviors, which is also very elevated. He has trouble with changes in routine. He engages in purposeless stereotypical behaviors and overreacts to sensory issues, such as loud noises. He may cover his ears or not like to be around them. Maybe bright lights. You rated him at a 68 for self-regulation. He has deficits in attention and motor control and is argumentative. This is not something that I saw in my observation, but this, of course, can happen more in one setting than the other. But his teacher may have noticed some of him being argumentative in her room as well. However, my observation was just a 50-minute observation, so he could easily just had a good day, or maybe that's something that he was getting better at since this testing was done. So according to all of your scores, which are sub-tests for an overall score, the overall score is that he is very elevated and he has symptoms directly related to the diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder. Now, it looks like his general education teacher rated him pretty close to the same that you did. His social communication was also very elevated. Unusual behaviors were also very elevated. And self-regulation was also very elevated, which makes his overall score very elevated, just like yours was. So, once again, that shows, based off of these tests, that he does exhibit some of the behaviors of autism spectrum disorder. Another test that Abbott was given was the Woodcock-Johnson Test of Achievement, the 3rd edition. This was administered in order to assess the achievement level of the individual in the areas of math, reading, writing, and language. So now we're going to get more onto different levels of subjects like math, reading, spelling. These have an average score of 100. So there's a standard deviation is what it's called. So 100 is in the middle, 15 points and 15 points. This is all average. So 85 to 115 is an average score. So in letter word identification, he scored a 96, which is an average score. In sentence reading fluency, he scored an 87, which is also an average score. Passage comprehension, he was reading a passage and being able to answer questions about the passage. He scored a 92, which is also average. In math calculation, which is problems just involving like maybe addition, subtraction, not necessarily word problems, but he scored a 77, and that is below average. So that 85 is the average ending, and he was at a 77. Applied problems was right at that. So this one is like math problem. That was right there at 85, so that's still average. Writing samples is at an 89, which is still just right there at the average line. He was also given the Brugance Comprehensive Inventory of Basic Skills. So this also, it can be given to students ages 5 to 13. It also involves those writing, spelling, reading, math, and the same for those average scores. So in basic reading, he was scored a 98, which is average. Reading comprehension, a 97, which is average. His total math score was a 91, which is average. Written expression was a 79, which is below average. When I asked his teacher about this, she said that he really does struggle with writing, and she's even tried to give him a computer at times, but he seems to like to write it on paper, but he doesn't like to write. So I'm not sure, that might be something we want to try working on, getting him more used to the computer and seeing if he'll write better that way. But that's just that if you're giving a topic, what you can write about the topic. Listening comprehension was at a 93, and that's an average score. Math processing was at a 94, that's an average. Writing information processing, that's a 96, that's also average. And reading information processing is at a 101, and that is also average. So the only one that he scored below average on this test was the written expression. The Woodcock-Johnson-4 is a test of cognitive abilities. It measures general intellectual ability. So it's also an IQ test. So the GFGC composite and the compositional knowledge are two subtests, and the fluid reasoning are subtests to make up the general intellectual ability. So this is the overall IQ score, and according to this test, Cameron scored an IQ of 81. So it's still that 85 is the average line. So he scored right below it an 81, which is a below average score. So some of Abbott's strengths include good relations with teachers, dinosaur facts, letter word recognition, comprehension, understanding directions, knowledge of animals, participating during science lessons, and drawing. So another recommendation after I found out that he loves to draw is that maybe instead of always writing for journal entries, maybe he could draw it out instead and then discuss with the teacher what the drawing represents to really place value on what the words with the pictures mean so that he can start making that transition to writing with his illustrations. Science seems to be really one of his strong points. He enjoys participating in science lessons and does often, and he also likes to discuss dinosaur facts and animal facts. Some of his weaknesses include making friends, sustaining eye contact, social interactions, which the social interactions and the eye contact may go hand in hand with the making friends. That may be something that we want to put in place too for him to get more social interaction. Another of his weakness is staring spells and daydreaming. This is something that I noticed in my observation. Math calculation, story recall, thought problems, withdrawn and depressed, attention, self-regulation, and written expression. So we talked about some of those throughout going over the results of the formal assessments that we just discussed. So based off of all of this and you expressing concerns that Cameron may fall in the autism spectrum disorder, and his teacher expressing concerns in the same area, and doing the 3 tests with the autism spectrum rating. While Cameron does have a diagnosis of of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, according to these results, he also shows behaviors for the autism spectrum disorder as well. And so that is why his disability has been changed to autism spectrum disorder.